In the heart of Rome stands a building nearly 2,000 years old, with a vast dome that has no steel inside it at all. It has survived earthquakes, floods, invasions, and the fall of an entire empire. And to this day, it remains the largest unreinforced concrete dome on the planet. It is called the Pantheon. And here is the part that keeps modern engineers awake at night. The concrete the Romans used to build it was, in some ways, better than the concrete we make today. It could heal its own cracks. It grew stronger when soaked in seawater. And then, when Rome fell, the recipe vanished, lost for more than 1,000 years. This is the story of the most used man-made material on Earth, a grey powder so ordinary you would never look at it twice, and yet the entire modern world is quite literally built on top of it. But first, we have to clear up a mistake that almost everyone makes. People say cement and concrete as if they mean the same thing. They do not. Concrete is the finished material, the stuff of buildings, bridges, and dams. Cement is just one ingredient inside it, the magical grey glue that binds everything together. Think of it like baking a cake. Concrete is the cake, and cement is the flour. Without the flour, nothing holds. So before we can pour a single wall, we first have to make the cement, and that process is far stranger and far more violent than you might imagine. To understand it, we have to go back to the beginning. The Romans were the first true masters of concrete. They mixed volcanic ash with lime and seawater, and they built things that have outlasted civilizations: harbors, aqueducts, the Colosseum, and that impossible dome in Rome. For centuries, scientists could not understand why Roman concrete survived when modern concrete crumbles in mere decades. Then, only recently, researchers found the secret hiding in plain sight: tiny white chunks of lime scattered through the ancient material. For a long time, everyone assumed these were just mistakes, sloppy mixing. They were nothing of the kind. When a crack forms and water seeps in, those lime chunks dissolve and react, growing new crystals that fill the crack and seal it shut. The concrete literally repairs itself, like living skin. But when the Roman Empire collapsed, so did its knowledge. The formula for this incredible material was simply forgotten, buried under 1,000 years of history. Through the entire Middle Ages, humanity built with plain stone and weak mortar, and never came close to matching what Rome had achieved. It was not until 1824, in the English city of Leeds, that a bricklayer named Joseph Aspdin finally cracked a new version of the code. He heated limestone and clay together, ground the result into powder, and patented it. He called it Portland cement, because when it hardened, its colour reminded him of the prized building stone quarried on the Isle of Portland. That single grey powder would go on to build the modern world, and almost every building around you right now is made from its descendants. So how is that powder actually made today? It begins, strangely enough, with a mountain. The main ingredients of cement are limestone and clay, and to get them, companies blast entire hillsides apart with explosives. Massive machines then bite into the rock and haul away thousands of tons of it. This raw stone is dumped into crushers that shatter it into smaller and smaller pieces until huge boulders become gravel. The crushed limestone and clay are carefully measured and blended in exact proportions because the chemistry has to be perfect, and then fed into an enormous rotating mill that grinds them into a fine grey powder called raw meal. At this stage, it looks almost harmless. It is about to be put through hell. The powder is lifted into a towering preheater where blistering hot gases begin to roast it as it falls, and then it enters the beating heart of the entire operation, the rotary kiln. This is one of the largest moving machines in all of industry, a steel tube longer than a football field, tilted slightly and slowly turning, lined with brick and glowing from within. Inside, the temperature climbs to around 1,450 degrees Celsius. To put that in perspective, that is hotter than flowing lava from a volcano. As the raw meal tumbles down through this inferno, it stops being a simple mix of ground rock. The intense heat rips the molecules apart and forces them to recombine in violent chemical reactions, and the powder fuses into strange, glowing, marble-sized lumps. These lumps are called clinker, and clinker is the true secret of cement. Glowing and near molten, the clinker pours out of the kiln, and it is far too hot to touch or use. so it rushes into a cooler where powerful blasts of air hit it and drop its temperature fast. This sudden cooling is not just for safety, it locks in exactly the right crystal structure that gives cement its strength. Cool it wrong, and the whole batch is ruined. Once cooled, the dark clinker is ground one final time into an ultra-fine powder, and a small amount of gypsum is added. That gypsum is crucial. It is the brake pedal, the ingredient that controls how fast the cement will set, so it does not harden the instant it touches water. And there it is. Ordinary Portland cement, finished, bagged, and ready to go. But at every single step, lab technicians pull samples and run constant chemical tests, because if the recipe drifts even slightly, the buildings made from it could one day fail. Now pause for a second and consider the sheer scale of this. Cement is the most widely used construction material humanity has ever created. Around 4 billion tons of it are produced every single year. The numbers are almost impossible to picture. Here is one that sounds made up, but is true. In just 3 years, China used more concrete than the United States used in the entire 20th century. The global concrete industry is worth hundreds of billions of dollars. But that scale hides a heavy cost. Making cement releases so much carbon dioxide that if the cement industry were a country, it would be the third largest polluter on the entire planet, behind only China and the United States. And all of it, every skyscraper, every runway, every dam, starts as that unremarkable powder we just watched being born in fire. But cement on its own is not what we build with. To make concrete, that cement has to be combined with the ingredient that makes up most of the final material: aggregate. Aggregate is simply rock, a carefully chosen mixture of gravel and sand, and it can make up as much as 3/4 of concrete by volume. There is real science hidden here. The larger gravel forms the skeleton, and the finer sand fills the gaps between the stones, packing everything tight so there are no weak, empty spaces. Get the blend right, and you need less expensive cement to hold it all together. And here is a fact almost no one knows. The world is running out of sand. It sounds absurd, since deserts are full of it, but desert sand is too smooth and round to lock together in concrete. Construction needs the sharp, angular sand from rivers and beaches, and we are devouring it faster than the planet can replace it, roughly 50 billion tons a year, which makes sand the most extracted solid material on Earth. Demand has become so intense that in some countries illegal sand mafias strip entire beaches and riverbeds bare overnight, and people have been killed in the fight over it. The humble grain of sand under your feet is quietly becoming one of the most valuable and contested resources on the planet. Then come the hidden stars of the show, the admixtures. These are special chemicals added in tiny amounts that give concrete almost superhuman abilities. Some, called plasticizers, make the wet concrete flow like syrup so it can slide into the most crowded, complicated molds without leaving gaps. Others speed up or slow down how fast it sets so builders can pour in freezing winter or blazing summer. Because concrete is incredibly strong when squeezed, but weak when pulled apart, engineers also reinforce it, mixing in fibers of steel, glass, or carbon, or embedding steel bars to stop it from cracking under tension. This is the quiet chemistry that turns simple rock and glue into the backbone of civilization. With everything ready, the real construction begins. The cement, the aggregate, the admixtures, and water are measured out with precision, because the exact ratio decides how strong the final concrete will be. This is such an exact science that mixing concrete is its own entire engineering discipline, with strict building codes dictating the proportions for everything from a garden path to a nuclear power plant. The dry ingredients are blended until every grain of cement is evenly spread through the rock, and then comes the moment everything has been building toward. The water is added. And here is where most people get concrete completely wrong. Concrete does not dry. It is not like mud baking hard in the sun. When water meets cement, it triggers a chemical reaction called hydration, and the cement and water lock together into a solid crystal structure, growing and interweaving on a microscopic level. This reaction gives off heat, and it does not stop when the surface feels hard. It keeps going for days, months, even years, slowly making the concrete stronger and stronger over time. In fact, the enormous concrete in the Hoover Dam generated so much heat as it cured that engineers had to run nearly 600 miles of cold water pipe through it to stop it from cracking. They estimated that, left as a single solid block, it would have taken over 100 years to fully cool on its own, which is exactly why the legend that the dam is still curing today has never quite died. Once mixed to the perfect consistency, the wet concrete is rushed to its final home. It is poured into molds called formwork or pushed through pumps and along conveyors to reach exactly where it needs to go. But pouring is not enough. Trapped air bubbles are hidden weaknesses, so workers use powerful vibrators to shake the concrete until every pocket of air rises out and the material settles dense and solid. Then comes the most misunderstood step of all: curing. Instead of letting it dry out, workers keep the fresh concrete wet, covering it with sheets or blankets and spraying it with water for days or even weeks. It sounds backwards, but it is the secret to strength. The longer that hydration reaction is kept alive, the harder and more durable the final concrete becomes. Only after it is properly cured is the surface smoothed, leveled, and finished into the walls, floors, and roads we walk on every day. And so we arrive back where we started, from a blasted mountain, through a furnace hotter than lava, into a fine powder, and transformed by a silent chemical reaction into the single most important building material on Earth. The Romans discovered a version of this magic 2,000 years ago, lost it, and it took us 1,000 years to find it again. Look around you right now, and you are almost certainly surrounded by it, the most ordinary and the most extraordinary material ever made. If you enjoyed this journey, hit that like button, tell us in the comments what material we should uncover next, and subscribe so you never miss a story. See you in the next one.